It's time to compare the Sony A7rIII
with the Nikon D850.
Hey, wait a minute. I want to trade places. Yeah, looking a little taller. Hi, this is JP Morgan.
And this is Kenneth Merrill.
And we have with us today...
Hi, I'm Megan Arima.
Megan's going to be our model today as we take a look at the Sony A7rIII.
And the Nikon D850.
We're going to see how these compare with one another. So we're going to start off with, what are the things we want to start out with?
Well, obviously, picture quality, top priority.
Absolutely. Autofocus.
Low light, and then we'll talk about how they handle. Obviously, very different cameras. One's mirrorless, one's a DSLR, one's about heavy as a brick, one's light as a feather. Just kidding. It's a little bit of an exaggeration. But yeah, we'll see how they handle.
But on our cameras, we have 85mm 1.4 lenses. This is really their native lenses, so we're shooting on the glass that goes with this camera. So there you go. So let's take a look at these two cameras, starting first with picture quality.
Picture quality.
Okay, so here's our first image. We have the Sony on the right and the
Nikon on
the left.
The first thing you'll notice is one is brighter than the other.
Yes.
We exposed both of these cameras the exact same in every shot. Same ISO, same shutter, same aperture, and same white balance. And I've heard this before. I've heard that Nikon is the only camera company that accurately rates its ISO.
Well, the Sony seems a little under for that.
Yeah.
It seems just slightly under,
Seems a little
but
bit darker.
It does.
I was actually surprised at how closely the color chips match on the checkerboard. The Sony is a tiny bit greener. I actually
Beautiful though. In this
of
image, I
in
think
terms
they
of
both look
just
good.
output, I kind of like the Sony's roll a little bit better. Like it's a softer roll off, whereas the Nikon's a little more like highlight, shadow. You know, two-dimensional.
In this, maybe if we were to bring it down a little bit, it'd make a difference. But it feels just a little bit like retouching. It's a tiny bit too bright.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have that kind of just beautiful skin tone.
Three-dimensional sort of look.
Yeah, I think you're right. So now, I mean, everyone is always competing on the basis of autofocus. You know, we have the best this, the best that. I mean, that's really because photographers don't know what they're doing anymore and don't have a clue how to focus. They really just need an automatic camera. And so camera companies are fighting.
We focused with the crank.
Absolutely.
It took 3 men.
Just kidding. Being a guy who uses autofocus all the time, because my eyes are not as good as they used to be. I mean, autofocus is a competitive place where people are trying to make their cameras really perform in that area.
And Sony's like really pushing the envelope because of the mirrorless thing, and it can focus like all over the frame. And it's just, the whole mirrorless thing really helps because the sensor is constantly getting information, being able to use it to catch on to whatever the subject is. So, the Nikon first.
Nikon first.
The Nikon does have face detect, and it has this 3D tracking that I used. I found it to be pretty great. I mean, obviously, the subject still has to keep within the focus area, but I had pretty good success with it.
Well, the first image is sharp.
We're looking at these, and at this distance, I mean, they're pretty close. It's, in a lot of cases, it's like focused on her ear or her hair and stuff. It's not exactly on. If we move down closer, as she gets closer to us, let's move here. So at like medium distance, you know, maybe 15 feet away, it's like really tack sharp.
It's just beautifully sharp.
On pretty much all these photos. Well, maybe not that one.
But it's acceptably sharp. That one's maybe not tack sharp, but that one is. Yeah.
No, maybe not.
Maybe
Okay.
not quite. But I mean, they're not out of focus by any means. We're talking about super critical focus, like the eyelashes are just popping, you know.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
that's pretty tack sharp.
I would say, yeah, like 1 in every 3 photos here is like absolute critical focus. Eyes are tack sharp, and the rest of them are like acceptably sharp. You know, if you're not going to take this thing and crop in by 100% and blow it up to a 10-foot print, you know, you'll probably still be fine. I mean, especially, you look at these, and when she gets up close, when she's within that last 10 feet, it's like on it every time.
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible. I don't know how. I definitely wouldn't hesitate to recommend the Nikon for like a sports shooter or something like that.
Which has been a mainstay for Nikon. Now we're going to go to the Sony.
All these at the distance are like
It
really
seemed like
sharp.
that distance was, and I guess she's moving quicker as she gets closer. And
yeah,
so
it's a more
at a
dramatic
distance,
change.
I mean, that's acceptably sharp, not tack sharp, that one.
I mean,
At
it
that point,
seems
she's
to me
too close. She's beyond the minimum focus distance of the lens.
It seems to me the Sony performed pretty dang good.
It did.
I think the Sony performed better at a longer distance than the Nikon did.
Do you think so?
Honestly, I think it's because of the more autofocus points means it has more ability to decide what's a face and what's not, whereas the Nikon at distance is jumping between focus
so you're
points that
saying
are
the
more
Sony did better at a distance?
at a distance.
Yes,
yeah.
okay, I agree
think
with
it
that.
did.
Yep.
Up close, I think it's a pretty close tie.
Pretty close tie.
Honestly. So here we have the ISO test. I think, again, we're seeing here that the Nikon is, well, I mean, especially because this was converted from the RAW, because we wanted to make sure we get all the texture of the RAW image. The Nikon's hotter than the Sony is. Not by a ton, but
not by a ton.
It's a little bit hotter.
And it is. The reason we used RAW and not the JPEGs is there's no sharpening applied to this. This
no
is
noise
just
reduction.
No noise reduction. None of that. It's just exactly how the image comes off the camera, the raw data.
Every time we do this test with like a new camera, it's just like, and even cleaner at even higher ISOs.
Exactly. And yeah, there's starting to be some grain in that background. Do we see it in the blacks? We see it a little bit in her hair. We're not seeing a lot of artifacting. I'm not seeing a lot of artifacting on either of these.
I mean, the detail's holding up really well, which is what's going to set these cameras apart from cheaper cameras or cameras with less resolution, is the noise won't interfere with the detail as quickly. So you watch like the Nikon's progression between the ISOs, and it doesn't change. The image doesn't really change hardly at all. But you watch the Sony as it progresses through the ISOs, and it actually feels like it's getting darker. And we've seen that before with the Sonys when we've tested them for photos.
Which means the ISO is not
it's not rated correctly at the higher ISOs.
Yeah, that's really, they're overstating the ISO.
Yeah, I mean, I would say at
a half a stop.
25,600 at the maximum, it feels like the Sony is at least a stop underexposed.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I mean, the Nikon is hotter to begin with. And I think it's just a little more consistent throughout the range, is all. In terms of just like standard 4K capture, I mean, they both do 60 frames in 1080 full frame. They both do up to 30 frames in 4K. Obviously, the Sony can shoot a much more flat profile than the Nikon can. So just for that reason alone, if you're looking for a camera, if you're going to be doing a lot of video, go with a Sony. I still don't really recommend Nikons for people who plan to shoot lots of video. They just don't have the feature set.
They're not. It's not their mainstay.
It's not their target.
It's not their target.
Yeah.
So.
But if you're planning to buy a Nikon for photos anyways, if you're really sold on their photography abilities, which is reasonable, then it's not like you're going to be missing out on capturing 4K video if you need to. I gotta say, this thing is a beast. It's a big camera. I mean,
it is a big camera.
Even we're used to Canon bodies, so like the 5D, which is kind of the equivalent of this D850. It's a beast of a camera. It's a large DSLR, especially compared to this guy, mirrorless, which is tiny.
It's much smaller. It's a much smaller platform.
But you throw this lens on there, and it's like
that
it
lens
evens
is
out.
massive.
It's really, the G Master lenses are heavy, so you
profile.
you actually hold both of these cameras, and they come out about even in terms of
weight
size.
wise.
Yeah,
and size. Yeah, just that weight.
Or not size, but weight. Yeah.
Yeah. But this body is changed a lot. I mean, they have larger battery it's more like the A9 battery.
Lasts a long time.
Yep, has that larger battery.
We only shot on one battery for like 4 hours.
And when has that ever happened to a Sony
before?
Never. I mean, that really needed
huge
to happen. Huge improvement. Really, truly is a huge improvement.
That would actually, like, if you're just getting into Sony and going for a flagship camera like this, and someone said, "Oh, should I get the A7S II or the battery issue alone might be enough to tip the scale just towards this camera."
It would for me.
Yeah,
it would for me.
absolutely.
I believe in the Sony line by far, and maybe across any line. This is the best crossover camera you can buy right now.
In terms of video and photo?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's probably true.
By far the best. And it's really geared to be that in that world. You got a super large sensor, like 40 or 43 megapixels. You've got great HD, 4K, got 120 frames a second at 1080p.
And it shoots the S-Log, the super flat
profile. S-Log.
I mean, the only thing it's missing is maybe the sensitivity of the A7S line, but if you can do without the sensitivity, I think this is probably superior in every other way.
I don't think the sensitivity is an issue for me on any level.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not shooting events and stuff, it's really not a big worry.
Yeah, if you're controlling any kind of light at all, I think this camera is way better than the A7S2.
A7S2.
I really do. Well, for me, because I shoot stills as well.
Right. You know, I think just having shot with it and looked through the features and looking at the images, I feel like it comes down to the classic conundrum between Sony and your more standard Canon Nikon lines, and that is, I think the Sony far outstrips the Nikon, or obviously the Canon in terms of features. Like the autofocus features are amazing, the flexibility in terms of in-camera controls. I love the G Master lenses having the aperture on the
aperturing
on the lens, and you can declick it. And but on the other hand, looking at the images, I like the feel of the Nikon images a little bit better. The color seems a little bit nicer to me, and the dynamic range is better, and the ISO it's better. So it's not a huge deal. It's just like marginal differences, but again, it's like features versus absolute image quality.
Well, there's obviously no knockout blow here by any means. It's going to be a matter of taste and how you like to work. If you've tied yourself into the Sony line of lenses and things, you're not gonna. There's not something you see here that's gonna make you go,
oh, I need to go back to Nikon.
Yeah, or vice versa. I don't know that unless you really are. Although I really struggle with the weight and smallness thing, because when you put that huge lens on there, you lose all of that advantage. It'd be nice if and it's physics. You can't get that kind of glass in a smaller package. That's all there is to it, unless you go to an f4 lens, which they have. That lens could be improved a lot, actually.
Or unless you're Leica.
Unless you're Leica, there you go, and that'll be $10,000, please.
But the Leicas are all manual focus too, so
yeah, it's all the autofocus features. Great camera. I think it's fascinating. The last time we did this review a year ago, we had 3 cameras here, and this year we only have 2 cameras here. And the reason we only have 2 is because, and I don't mean this in any way other than reality, Canon doesn't have a camera that competes in this category.
It doesn't.
They just don't. We're kind of between the A7R, or between the Mark IV and the 1DX.
Yeah. But even the 1DX is only 20 megapixels.
Yeah. It's so Canon just doesn't have a camera. Canon is slowly watering itself down, trying to kind of pigeonhole, segment. That's what Canon does. Whereas Sony's not about that. They're trying to stuff as much stuff as they can into each of these lines, and consequently, and same with Nikon. They got nothing to segment about. They're not trying to make it 10 different camera lines. So I just think it's fascinating. Canon doesn't have a camera sitting here with us, and they should, but they don't. So all right, so there you have it, the D850 and the Sony A7rIII. So keep those cameras rolling.
Keep on clicking.
Our Mastering Studio Strobes download is meant to help you move into the world of strobes. It's meant to help you to know what to buy. And then it's going to help you know how to use them, how to light with them, how to use the modifiers with them. It'll help you move into that world of strobes and how to use them on set. So go to theslantlens.com where you can get the download today. So make sure you subscribe to the Slanted Lens. Check out our Facebook group, great community there. You've got to join with us. And also check out Megan.
You can find me on Instagram at Megan_Hana.
And Kenneth?
I guess you could call me on my landline. I don't know, maybe send a page.
There you go, page him. He'll surely get back to you.